Mobile Task Forces are elite units composed of personnel drawn from across the Foundation, and are mobilized to deal with specific threats, or situations that sometimes exceed the operational capacity or expertise of regular field personnel, and, as their names suggest, may be relocated between facilities or locations as they are needed. Mobile Task Force personnel represent the best of the Foundation. Mobile Task Forces vary greatly in size, composition, and purpose. A battalion-strength combat-oriented task force, trained to deal with highly aggressive anomalous entities, may consist of hundreds of troops, plus support personnel, vehicles, and equipment, and can be deployed in whole or in part to deal with threats across the globe. However, a mobile task force can also be a small, specialized intelligence gathering or investigative task force that may have fewer than a dozen personnel, if that is deemed sufficient to accomplish their goals. While in the field, task force members often pose as emergency responders, local or federal law enforcement, or military personnel appropriate to the region in which they are operating. Mobile Task Force commanders can also request the assistance of local field units or personnel stationed at nearby Foundation facilities in order to accomplish their missions. Organization. Each unit is fundamentally structured in a way that best suits their intended purpose. While combat-oriented task forces may closely follow military hierarchy and organization, smaller units may have an informal or otherwise esoteric chain of command. As such, the responsibilities of the Mobile Task Force Commander, MTFC, for each particular task force can vary greatly. The commander for a large task force might focus on maintaining multiple teams and deploying them as necessary to each assigned operation, whereas the commander of a small team might deploy with their team and direct the operation from on location. Similarly, the cohesion of each unit will vary as well. Some mobile task forces consist of personnel who have trained and worked for many years or even decades together, whereas the personnel of a mobile task force formed on a moment's notice to deal with a specific incident may know little more than each other's names and fields of expertise. Creation. Mobile task forces are typically commissioned as deemed necessary by the Foundation's Director of Task Forces, often with the direct approval of one or more O5 Council members. A significant number of mobile task forces are created to deal with specific anomalies exhibiting traits that standard containment or response teams are unable to effectively counteract, though many were also created to preempt an emerging or theoretical threat. Deactivation. Mobile task forces created for the purpose of containing a particular anomaly are typically deactivated at the end of the recovery operation, or when ongoing containment is deemed no longer necessary. Occasionally, such task forces remain operational if the expertise and experiences learned are considered useful for future incidents, but otherwise the task force will likely be disbanded and its personnel return to their prior post. Very rarely, a mobile task force will also be disbanded if it suffers sufficient casualties to render it incapable of operation. In these cases, if the prior capability of that particular task force is deemed necessary, a new task force may be commissioned to replace it. MTF Alpha-1 Red Right Hand. Task Force Mission. Mobile Task Force Alpha-1 is a task force that reports directly to the O5 Council, and is used in situations that require the strictest operational security. The task force consists of the Foundation's best and most loyal operatives, and serves as the O5 Council's Special Operations Unit. Further information regarding MTF Alpha-1 is classified Level 5. MTF Alpha-4 Pony Express. Task Force Mission. Mobile Task Force Alpha-4 consists primarily of personnel trained to act as undercover employees and specialize in tracking, intercepting, and securing anomalous objects sent through postal and package delivery services worldwide. MTF Alpha-9 Last Hope Task Force Mission: Training and utilizing humanoid SCP objects in the field. Mobile Task Force Alpha-9 Last Hope resurrects the original premise of Mobile Task Force Omega-7. MTF Beta-1 Cauterizers Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Beta-1 is a highly classified unit specializing in dealing with suspected cases of enemy infiltration within Foundation personnel, and possible information leaks to other groups of interest. MTF Beta-2 Bayou Boys Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Beta-2 is a region-specific task force based in Louisiana, trained to act in swamp and wetland environments. MTF Beta-4 Castaways Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Beta-4 is a task force created for the sole purpose of assisting and monitoring GOI-466 Wilson's Wildlife Solutions in their interaction with local fauna-based anomalies. MTF Beta-7 Maz Hatters Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Beta-7 specializes in the acquisition and containment of anomalies exhibiting extreme biological, chemical, or radiological hazards, as well as the rapid containment and cleanup of areas affected by such anomalies. This includes the planning and deployment of contingencies for wide area or pandemic spread of anomalous disease agents or other contagious phenomena. MTF Beta-777 Hecate Spear Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Beta-777 specializes in thaumaturgical ritual analysis and countermeasures, including thaumaturgical combat, based at Site-91. MTF Gamma-4 Blondebeard's Crew Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Gamma-4 is a 5-man task force specializing in performing tasks in low to zero gravity and vacuum environments, based at Lunar Area 32. MTF Gamma-4 Green Stags Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Gamma-4 specializes in operations involving anomalies in forested or otherwise nature-based environments, skilled in ecology, recovery, and tracking targets, based at Site-44, and operating on behalf of the Cryptozoology Division. MTF Gamma-5 Red Herrings Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Gamma-5 specializes in preventing the dissemination of knowledge of anomalous events or phenomena in cases where initial suppression efforts have proven ineffective or insufficient, or in cases where such knowledge has already reached critical levels of public exposure. This includes the research and deployment of experimental amnestics, as well as memory fabrication procedures. MTF Gamma-6 Deep Feeders Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Gamma-6 specializes in the investigation and tracking of deep-sea or oceanic anomalies. MTF Gamma-13 Asimov's Lawbringers Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Gamma-13 specializes in the investigation, tracking, and apprehension of anomalous objects, persons, and entities associated with GOI-1115 Anderson Robotics. This includes identification of Anderson customers, location of Anderson products, and conduction of raids on Anderson offices. MTF Delta-4 Frontrunners Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Delta-4 is composed of multiple autonomous deep cover cells, specializing in identification and preemptive acquisition of anomalous objects and entities of interest to other groups of interest. MTF Delta-4 Minutemen Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Delta-4 is a rapid response task force, specializing in being the first deployed to a scene. They're tasked with establishing a perimeter and assessing the situation, as well as providing additional manpower to other task forces when they arrive. MTF Delta-14 Winter Wonderland Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Delta-14 specializes in handling and containing anomalies in sub-zero or cold environments, or anomalies related to snow. MTF Delta-45 Rolling Thunder Task Force Mission Aerial Mobile Task Force Delta-45 is deployed as air support during Foundation operations. MTF Epsilon-6 Village Idiots Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Epsilon-6 specializes in the investigation, containment, and subsequent cleanup of anomalies in rural and suburban environments. MTF Epsilon-7 Forget-Me-Nots Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Epsilon-7 specializes in the undercover disruption of the research and development of amnestic drugs. MTF Epsilon-9 Fire Eaters Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Epsilon-9 specializes in the use of incendiary weaponry and operations in high-temperature environments. MTF Epsilon-11 Nine-Tailed Fox Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Epsilon-11 handles internal security for the SCP Foundation, under oversight by MTF Alpha-1. They are a special ops force, deployed to Foundation sites when standard protocols fail, and multiple breaches are imminent. As such, most of their operations are classified. MTF Epsilon-13 Manifest Destiny Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Epsilon-13 is a task force trained in the exploration of expansive unknown terrain, based at Site-81. MTF Zeta-9 Mole Rats Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Zeta-9 specializes in the investigation, exploration, and containment of underground or enclosed areas exhibiting anomalous phenomena, particularly those with inconsistent topography or unstable spacetime. MTF Eta-4 Begone Thoth Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Eta-4 is a unit of intelligent SCP-3095 affected seabirds. Eta-4 specializes in information collection and analysis, complementary field research and support, and in extreme cases, airborne combat. The task force was ultimately charged with protecting humanity after the BE-class migration end of consciousness scenario. MTF Eta-5 Jaeger Bombers Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Eta-5 is a rapid response unit specializing in the tracking, capturing, and containment of large-scale aggressors, entities over 30 meters in height. Deploys from and detains LSAs within Dimensional Site-172. MTF Eta-10 See No Evil Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Eta-10 specializes in the investigation, acquisition, and initial containment of objects or entities exhibiting visual cognitohazards, visual mimetic agents, or otherwise require indirect or alternative observation in order to safely handle. MTF Eta-11 Savage Beasts Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Eta-11 specializes in the investigation, acquisition, and containment of auditory or musical anomalies, including any auditory cognitohazards or sound-based anomalous threats. MTF Eta-77 Spears Within Spears Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Eta-77 is the Department of Tactical Theology Special Operations Unit, consisting of 15 members experienced in dealing with aggressive or threatening religion-related anomalies. MTF Theta-4 Gardeners Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Theta-4 specializes in the acquisition and containment of plant or plant-like anomalous objects and entities, especially fieldwork involving widespread infestations of such anomalies. MTF Theta-5 The Bigger Boat. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Theta-5 specializes in anomalies involving or threatening marine vehicles. MTF Theta-90 Angle Grinders. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Theta-90 The Angle Grinders specialize in operating in locations of anomalous topology, geometry, and in securing anomalies connected with these kinds of space-time distortions. MTF Iota-10 Dam Feds. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Iota-10 maintains undercover operatives in various international, federal, and provincial law enforcement agencies, and specializes in facilitating the transfer of anomalous evidence and objects into Foundation control, as well as the transfer of jurisdiction over anomalous event locations from local law enforcement to Foundation containment and response teams. MTF Kappa-10 Skynet. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Kappa-10 is a temporary designation until such time it is either officially dissolved or sanctioned. It is strictly tasked in investigating and engaging cyber anomalies using a combination of virtual agents, AICs, and Foundation researchers to track, neutralize, and/or contain such intangible threats. MTF Kappa-43 The Mediators. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Kappa-43 specializes in the investigation, tracking, and apprehension of anomalous objects and media associated with GOI 5889, Vikander Need Technical Media, and amnesticization of any witnesses, based at Site-43. MTF Lambda-4 Birdwatchers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Lambda-4 specializes in the identification, tracking, and containment of airborne biological anomalies, especially anomalous avian organisms. MTF Lambda-5 White Rabbits. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Lambda-5 specializes in traversing unstable, surreal, and controlled reality, and containing potentially dangerous persons and artifacts capable of manipulating space and time. MTF Lambda-12 Pest Control. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Lambda-12 specializes in tracking, containing, and exterminating anomalous vermin, often used as a first response team when tracking anomalous organisms. MTF Lambda-12 Kinkshamers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Lambda-12 specializes in containing anomalies relating to sexual attraction or sexuality. MTF Lambda-14 One-Star Reviewers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Lambda-14 specializes in dealing with retail-oriented locations and anomalies, be they singular restaurants or entire shopping districts displaying anomalies. Since their initial investigation of the Ambrose restaurant, MTF Lambda-14 has been assigned to combat this group. For more information on this task force, see the Ambrose Restaurant's dossier. MTF Mu-0 Maxwell's Demons. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Mu-0 specializes in containing demons or demonology-related anomalies. MTF Mu-3 Highest Bidders. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Mu-3 is dedicated to monitoring GOI, Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited through the combined efforts of undercover agents and covert ops specialists. Their objective is identifying objects of interest in possession of Marshall, Carter, and Dark, isolating opportunities to recover these objects, and ultimately achieving their containment. MTF Mu-4 Debuggers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Mu-4 specializes in the identification, tracking, retrieval, and containment of electronic devices and transmissions, especially anomalous computers and network-related anomalies. This includes the investigation of Internet sites suspected of anomalous capabilities, or involved in anomalous events. MTF Mu-13 Ghostbusters Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Mu-13 specializes in the tracking, analysis, and containment of incorporeal or intangible manifestations and entities, particularly those believed to be sentient, sapient, or otherwise intelligent and adaptive. MTF Nu-7 Hammer Down Task Force Mission Armed Mobile Task Force Nu-7 is a battalion-strength force consisting of 3 company-sized elements of Special Operations Infantry Forces, a light armored vehicle company, tank platoon, helicopter squadron, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear (CBRN) platoon, combat engineer platoon, nuclear weapons specialist (NWS squad), plus additional combat specialists and support personnel. AMTF Nu-7 is based primarily out of Armed Biocontainment Area 14, and is tasked with responding to incidents involving loss of communication with major Foundation facilities, under circumstances wherein a site-wide breach, enemy compromise, or other similarly catastrophic event is suspected. MTF Xi-13 Last to Fall Task Force Mission Armed Mobile Task Force Xi-13 is a battalion-strength task force dedicated to the acquisition and/or termination of Sarkic entities and artifacts. Created as a response to the growing Sarkic threat, Xi-13's operational scope encompasses all 6 major continents, with naval support provided by the Foundation as needed. MTF Xi-13 Sequere Nos Task Force Mission Armed Mobile Task Force Xi-13 is a platoon-strength rapid response unit, tasked with responding quickly to dangerous and/or anomalous situations, where the threat has not yet been identified, but military-grade force is deemed likely, including, but not limited to, large-scale containment and security breaches. MTF Omicron-Rho The Dream Team Task Force Mission The Foundation has discovered the method of becoming Oniri, and now with this power, are more capable of containing them. For decades, they teach their agents the technique that allows one consciousness to join another's. The few mentally hardened individuals that succeed are organized into a task force. The first of these was Mobile Task Force Omicron-Rho. MTF Beta-1 City Slickers Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Beta-1 specializes in the investigation, containment, and subsequent cleanup of anomalies in densely populated urban environments, particularly in the New York metropolitan area. MTF Rho-1 The Professors Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Rho-1 specializes in the acquisition, containment, and transport of anomalies related to Group of Interest Alpha-388, Alexiva University. With the reduction of the threat posed by the Pacific GOI, the MTF has expanded its focus to any and all containment for anomalous academic endeavors. MTF Rho-9 Technical Support Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Rho-9 handles computer security for the Foundation. When mimetic kill agents can lurk throughout a data structure, this is no simple task. MTF Rho-19 Cytherians Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Rho-19 has been sent to Venus, in the hopes to establish a Foundation presence where they may be considered anomalous activity. MTF Sigma-3 Bibliographers Task Force Mission Mobile Task Force Sigma-3 is charged with covert infiltration of the anomalous community for the purpose of gathering intel, with a particular focus on the vast, otherworldly location of the Wanderer's Library. MTF Sigma-9 Valkyries Task Force Mission Aerial Mobile Task Force Sigma-9 is a small unit providing air support for ground operations, or combat against aerial anomalies. MTF Sigma-10, the Sloth's Arm. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Sigma-10 is based at Site-87, and is dedicated to the containment of dangerous anomalies within Nexus 18, better known as Sloth's Pit, Wisconsin. MTF Sigma-66, 16 tons. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Sigma-66 is formed of captured members from other GOI. Despite the lack of loyalty the Foundation expects from the assembled team, they find the members' expertise of value. MTF Tau-5, Samsara. Task Force Mission: Immortal cyborg clones, created from the flesh of a dead god. Mobile Task Force Tau-5, Samsara, utilizes esoteric and experimental Foundation weaponry to investigate and contain thaumaturgic and psionic threats. MTF Tau-9, Bookworms. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Tau-9 deals with anomalies related to the Library, the Serpent's Hand, and magic. A more traditional counterpart to Sigma-3. MTF Tau-51, Urban Brawl. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Tau-51 specializes in the containment and recovery of SCP objects from urban environments, especially in the anomalous city of 3 Portlands. MTF Epsilon-4, Sugar Pill. Task Force Mission: Originally formed in order to contain SCP-2559, Mobile Task Force Epsilon-4 is tasked with epidemiological containment, especially with the containment of mimetic outbreaks. MTF Epsilon-11, Avalon's Wake. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Epsilon-11 utilizes SCP-4793 in combat against members of the Chaos Insurgency, specializing in defense against hostiles. MTF Epsilon-20, Hogtown Garrison. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Epsilon-20 contains anomalies found in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and the surrounding areas, based at Site-201. MTF Epsilon-23, Art Critics. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Epsilon-23 specializes in the containment of anomalous art, primarily the anart originating from GOI-0267. Are We Cool Yet? MTF Psi-8, Clever Girls. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Psi-8 specializes in the study, tracking, capture, and hunting of prehistoric anomalies, especially dinosaurs. MTF Xi-13, Plague Tamers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Xi-13 specializes in the containment of microbiological, biochemical, and pathogenic anomalies, based at Site-234. MTF Xi-9, Page Turners. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Xi-9 specializes in the detection, recovery, and neutralization of anomalous literature. MTF Psi-8, Home Improvement. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Psi-8 specializes in the undercover investigation, containment, and/or demolition of anomalous buildings, or buildings affected by anomalies, particularly residential homes in populated areas. This includes the acquisition or transfer of affected buildings to Foundation control, as well as initial observation and documentation of such buildings prior to transfer to local containment teams for long-term or ongoing containment, based at Site-77. MTF Psi-8, The Silencers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Psi-8 specializes in the investigation, tracking, containment, and/or destruction of individuals suspected to be capable of having been affected by reanimation anomalies, as well as investigating suspected cases of communication with deceased individuals. This includes the severing of devices intended to allow communication with individuals buried alive, such as bells, pipes, and bones, as well as detainment and interrogation of individuals claiming to have contact with deceased individuals. MTF Psi-9 Abyss Gazers. Task Force Mission: Armed Mobile Task Force Psi-9 is a battalion-strength force, consisting of personnel from the Foundation and Global Occult Coalition, trained in unconventional warfare against invading enemies through the use of heavy artillery, DMT-enhanced perception, and counter-occult stratagems (COS). MTF Psi-13 Witch Hunters. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Psi-13 is a highly classified Joint Foundation GOC task force, designed for the infiltration of circuit organizations and the termination of high-threat members. Operatives are trained in counter-occult stratagems (COS) and the use of corrosive and incendiary armaments. MTF Omega-0 Aura Orin. Task Force Mission: The Saints of MTF Omega-0 are informational constructs with the memories of deceased Foundation personnel, able to manifest through access of the Foundation's intranet terminals. Using Identity Warfare Training (IWT), they protect their living comrades against informational threats and entities. The existence of MTF Omega-0 is unknown to most or all of the living members of the Foundation. MTF Omega-1 Law's Left Hand. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Omega-1 are empowered to remove or execute high-ranking Foundation personnel if they are determined to be acting unethically. Answers only to the Ethics Committee, as their counterpart to the O5 Command's Red Right Hand. MTF Omega-7 Pandora's Box. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Omega-7 is an experimental task force specializing in the acquisition and containment of anomalies utilizing cooperative anomalous humanoid entities, particularly SCP-076 and SCP-105. Mobile Task Force Omega-7 has been disbanded and decommissioned. This entry is to be deleted by order of the Records and Information Security Administration. MTF Omega-12 Achilles' Heels. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Omega-12 is composed of reality-bending Foundation personnel from an alternate universe, tasked with capturing other SCP-3480-2 instances, guarding the many anomalous entities imprisoned in Area 13, and hunting down powerful, uncontained reality benders elsewhere. MTF Omega-20 Thought Police. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Omega-20 consists of two groups of operatives: the Wolves, Psychics, and the Lances, non-psychics, specialized in the attainment of persons of interest. MTF Omega-45 Street Samurai. Task Force Mission: Armed Mobile Task Force Omega-45 is an elite fighting force specialized in the use of anomalous weaponry, armor, and vehicles. Dispatched on missions to retrieve high-risk anomalies and in combat against hostile groups of interest, based at Site-78. MTF Sigma-9 evolved from naturally occurring gears, levers, and pulleys. Task Force Mission: Historically, the Church of the Broken God had always prided itself on its artificiality, that its faith is proven with tangible artifacts and physical devices of miracles. So, when the time came to destabilize the Church, the Foundation put forth a team of forgers, known as Mobile Task Force Sigma-9. MTF Alpha-45 Janitors. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Alpha-45 specialized in conducting cleanup and repair following destructive missions by other task forces. MTF Beta-10 Time Hoppers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Beta-10 is a task force trained to handle brief excursions into alternate timelines and/or realities. MTF Beta-43 Controllers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Beta-43 specializes in mimetic interdiction, based at Site-43. MTF Gamma-1 Search and Destroy. Task Force Mission: MTF Gamma-1 is a task force consisting of Foundation agents trained and specialized in neutralizing anomalous entities and objects that threaten the secrecy of the O5 Council. MTF Gamma-44 Meat Lockers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Gamma-44 is tasked with investigating and dismantling all possible GOI-0432, the Hunter's Black Lodge, cells located within the western United States. MTF Gamma-89 Rock in a Hard Place. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Gamma-89 specializes in the containment of geological anomalies, based at Site-898. MTF Delta-4 Solomon's Hand. Task Force Mission: Formed in late 1985 as a test case for the Special Asset Task Force Program, an initiative to employ persons with paranormal abilities as field agents. Mobile Task Force Delta-4 was stationed at Site-246, underneath Lake Superior, for the duration of its existence. Dissolved in 1990 after the loss of its primary Special Asset agent. MTF Delta-20 Blaze It. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Delta-20 specializes in anomalous recreational drugs and narcotics. MTF Eta-10 Gulliver's Tourist. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Eta-10 was created to journey into a massive series of tunnels extending through extra-dimensional space, colloquially known as the Gate. MTF Epsilon-13 Ford Pintos. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Epsilon-13 specializes in the recovery and containment of anomalies already distributed to the public, with a particular focus on anomalous motor vehicles. MTF Kappa-14 Sideshow Bob. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Kappa-14 is tasked with investigation of GOI-233, Herman Fuller's Circus of the Disquieting, and the containment of anomalies related to the group. MTF Mu-3 Limnophobia. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Nu-3 contains anomalies within Lake Ontario, based at Site-201. MTF Xi-13 Body Snatchers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Xi-13 specializes in the covert rendition, interrogation, and potential containment of individuals suspected of anomalous influence or capability, including high-profile targets such as politicians and celebrities, primarily based at Humanoid Containment Site-06. MTF Xi-5 Newton's Bullies. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Xi-5 is specially trained and equipped for expeditions into anomalous zones and alt-dimensional spaces deviating from baseline scientific principles. MTF Omicron-12 Nine-Tailed Docs. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Omicron-12 monitors various Internet sites to gather information and intercept anomalous activity. MTF Psi-8 Garbage In, Garbage Out. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Psi-8 is responsible for the transfer of prisoners and anomalies in and out of Site-43. MTF Rho-1 Home Invaders. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Rho-1 is dispatched to interior locations to investigate and/or manage events relating to Site-43 and its personnel. MTF Sigma-5 Drop Table Task Forces. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Sigma-5 is responsible for establishing and maintaining covert access to various social media and file-sharing sites, for the purposes of disinformation and controlling the spread of computer-based anomalies. MTF Epsilon-33 Rushing Critics. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Epsilon-33 specializes in the containment of anomalies related to GOI-478. Pseudogenesis Productions. MTF Bayou Provident Trawlers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Bayou consists of specially trained agents armed with amnestics, tasked with covertly retrieving civilians with anomalous connections from the general populace. MTF Psi-8 Maslow's Motivators. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Psi-8 is a worldwide network of psychologists, sociologists, and memeticists, most of whom are Reserve Foundation employees, assigned ad hoc, tasked with detecting, identifying, and tracking anomalous memes and behaviors in the human population. Active in tracking SCP-2631 and SCP-3519 related effects. MTF Psi-8 Tenure Trackers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Psi-8 are an undercover task force in academia, focused on discovering and handling subtle anomalous phenomena. MTF Omega-9 The Scrubs. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Omega-9 consists of 3 anomalous entities available for near-instantaneous deployment into extreme circumstances requiring the delivery of overwhelming force. Its primary purpose is as a rapid response team for containment breaches involving violent, hostile anomalies. As part of the agreement reached with these 3 entities, MTF Omega-9 is only to be used to eliminate hostile non-human targets. MTF Rho-1 State of Consciousness. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Rho-1 reports directly to the Administrator, serving as a counterpart to task forces to keep the power of the O5 Council in check. MTF Sampi-6 Imaginary Numbers. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Sampi-6 is a task force with familiarity with the occult community and experience with thaumaturgical threats. MTF Titan-1 Off the Books. Task Force Mission: Mobile Task Force Titan-1 is deployed to safeguard VIPs and eliminate hostile groups of interest. They specialize in unconventional warfare, subterfuge, and fear tactics to throw enemies off balance before raids. Distributed Task Forces. Task forces consisting of multiple divisions, grouped under a single banner. DTF Sigma-6 Puddle Jumpers. Task Force Mission: Distributed Task Force Sigma-6 protects and maintains SCP-120's facility and location outpost, and is composed of multiple units. Division 9 is stationed at Lunar Area 32. Special Task Forces. A designation used for an unusual type of task force. STF Rho-7 Greeting Party. Task Force Mission: Special Task Force Rho-7 is an STF tasked with the preliminary evaluation of an anomaly, allowing for quick, partial containment, and the informed delegation of an appropriate MTF unit.